Okay, we are now going to go over the financial engine or the general ledger. A few things to keep in mind. Some of the differentiators for our general ledger are that we have the ability out of the box to provide parallel ledgers, document splitting, intercompany eliminations and transactions, as well as foreign currency or multiple currency transactions. As we've talked about earlier, we have a universal journal that has the ability to capture many types of currencies for each transaction at the line item level. A lot of groups are using that for local currencies, reporting currencies, group currencies. There are more currency fields available than that, but those are some of the common ones so that every transaction that you have will be posted in all three or more of those currencies. So those are some of our highlights. What we're going to start out to show today are the power of parallel ledgers as well as document splitting and a little foreign currency transaction in there. We're going to do this all within one journal entry. To start off, I'm going to go ahead and open up some of my previous journal entries. I'm just doing this to save a little bit of time in the old keyboard input. And this can be a real life situation where we have a reoccurring transaction. Maybe it happens weekly, end of the month, or anytime a certain transaction occurs, and you just want to be able to go in, look at an old transaction, and replicate that. So in this case, I've got an odd number, this journal entry of $777 that I put in last week, and we'll go ahead and take a peek at what that looks like and recreate that as well. So first thing you're going to notice is our general information. You can see this was posted last week on the 13th. And right here, it's got a highlighted attribute for this posting saying that this was not posted in the leading ledger. It's just wanting to call attention to that. Further, it shows where it was posted, which is in 2L or our local GAAP ledger. As you can imagine, we have multiple types of ledgers that can fit whatever desire you need to. Wrong button, sorry. But in this case, we are posting just to the second ledger. So right here in the same screen where I'm able to look at my journal entry, you can see I can create correspondence for this older journal entry. I could reverse or edit it, as well as create a similar journal entry. By clicking similar journal entry, it's copying over that base information and allows me to make some edits as well. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and switch it to today. Leaving post period the same. And right now I'm just going to go ahead and open up our ledger group status to show you what options we've got available inside our demo system. So right now you can see our initial ledger, our 0L, is our leading ledger. That's going to be our default ledger. Anytime we don't post to a specific ledger, automatically it's going to go to our leading ledger. You can see we've got 1F, which is just a statistical ledger. We've got a local GAAP ledger, a 2L, which is where we're going to make this posting. You can see we have a US GAAP, can have ledger groups, so it can post to multiple types of ledgers, or in this case, we've also got a German GAAP ledger. So anyway, those are our ledgers that are available. Again, if I just left this blank, it would post straight to the leading ledger, 0L, but we'll go ahead and post back in here to ledger group 2L. Some more information. You can see in here, this is our petty cash account. I just know this account number, but if I wanted to, I could go ahead and come in here and start typing cash. I better start typing petty instead. So this is that petty cash account. So we've got that account as well. And one thing you're going to notice is we're working here in the US, so we're using our local currency as USD. But that being said, this all rolls up to a group currency that's inside euros. That currency translation's happening automatically. There's a variety of ways we can get that multiple currency translation to be happening. Some companies like to do that on a end of day, the most common is going to be end of day, board of trade closes, and those are the end of day postings, and those are the transactions we'd want to use. That could be brought over in a variety of ways. You could upload that into an Excel file. You could also have that come over as an automated service if you're a heavy transaction group in terms of your treasury department and want to have that be a service that's synced within the SAP system. That's completely acceptable as well. And so that's our intercompany, or sorry, our multiple currency translation. That's just happening automatically. Didn't have to do anything. All of that just pulled right over. So very powerful part of our GL. The two other things we're going to look at are parallel ledgers, which was the ledger conversation we had at the top. In this case, we're going just to our second ledger, and finally, document splitting. So as I scroll down and look at the debit part of this transaction, you can see that originally it was a $777 transaction. I'm debiting $419 to cost center 1710 inside company code 1710, as well as the remaining $358 into cost center 1711. So why are we doing that? The reason document splitting is enabled within our system is there's a lot of companies who say, I've got to report up to the various reporting agencies, and I need to have my entity structures generally at a company code level defined in one way to make sure I'm reporting to standards. And great, of course we're going to support that. However, a lot of companies say, I'd additionally like to have the ability to report my balance sheet and income statement, predominantly the balance sheet, into another form of entity structure. In this case, by cost center. Maybe you want to do it by product center. Some people want to look at balancing by a business segment or a region. Maybe even it's if you're heavy within in the industrial group, maybe it's by plant. Regardless of how you want to look at multiple structures, document splitting in the way that we're doing right now allows us to allocate our costs in a different way to make sure that your books are balanced without having to do multiple work and reshuffling of line item entries further down the road. To get an idea of how this looks, I'm going to go ahead and post this, and we'll pull this up inside our general ledgers. So in this case, I'm going to note the number ends in 758, and I'm going to go ahead and try to relaunch my general ledger comparisons. So just hang tight on that. Looks like I've crashed Excel. Just a moment. Go ahead and end that task. So now that we've posted that multiple ledger, multiple currency, and multiple documents, or a document split transaction, let's look at what that looks like inside our ledger by ledger comparison. So right now I've got our ledger comparison document open. You can see right now I've got in column B all of my main financial reports, assets, liabilities, stockholder equity, or my balance sheet, as well as my P&L statement, all done by this leading ledger. Alternatively, in column C, I've got my second ledger. If I wanted to pull over some of the other ledgers that you saw earlier, like a group ledger or the German GAAP ledger, we could obviously pull those in as opposed to ledger number 2. So to show you just how powerful this is, keep in mind this is all updated in real time. I'm going to go ahead and come over and expand this out a little bit to node 4. You could see in there that it was a really easy drag and drop selection option in terms of which node I want to expand this out to. And now you can see a little more detail of our assets as well as our liabilities, and then ultimately that P&L statement that we saw so much before doing the profitability vignette. In this case, we did a transaction, like I mentioned. It was going from petty cash into office supplies, and then we wanted to split that across our various our various cost centers, 1710 and 1711. And if you remember, that was coming from petty cash, but we also only did that in the second ledger, not the leading ledger. So to really make this information pop a little more, instead of having all of our balance sheets, P&Ls, all of this information, I'm just going to filter down to only my petty cash and go ahead and we'll swap that with the document number. So by selecting that, now all I'm looking at is my my entries at a line item level for petty cash across my leading ledger as well as my second ledger. If I scroll down to the bottom of my sheet, hopefully, yes, here we go. That entry that we finished with that ended in 758, here we have it in real time on just our second ledger. So you can notice not posting to my leading ledger, just to my second ledger. That alone is super powerful in the sense of being able to control your entries the way you want to be able to do that. To help simplify this information a little bit, now I'm going to go ahead and filter down just to my second ledger because I don't really need this variance column nor my leading ledger. So double click there and that brings that over. And you can see some of these other 777 entries. That's my reoccurring entry that I like to use. And now we're going to reintroduce this analysis tab that helps us do that pivoting on our universal journal, that same power that we saw earlier in the profitability segment. And in this case, I'm going to add segment. So in here you can see we have quite a few segments. It may seem a little busy to you right now, but this is really powerful. Now I'm able to look at all segments in my second ledger as defined by the transactions that we did. In this case, to highlight again the posting I just made, I'm going to go ahead and deselect all of my my segments and just filter it down to the 2 segments I posted it between. And now coming back to my line item number 758, you can see overall I posted $777 only to Ledger 2L, not to 1L, not to German GAAP, not to any of the others. And additionally, I split those costs in between segment A and segment Q, which correspond with our cost centers that we did earlier. Now switching roles, let's say I am at the end of the month or I'm auditing this actual trial balance or end of month balance, and I'm using this at more of a managerial reporting level and want to confirm that all my data is correct. As we saw earlier in the profitability segment, we can drill right back in from our analysis tool or our data visualization tool. In this case, we've been using Excel, and come right back to the actual journal entry we just did. You can see it was just posted by me on this date. Again, it highlights that it's not in the leading ledger, just to make sure that you're posting to the same place that you're hoping to. I can see that it isn't in the second ledger, and I can actually switch views to see how that line item level is being broken down. So yeah, we moved $777 from petty cash to office supply, but by expanding this out to the ledger, the second ledger view, I can see even more details, which credit, which debit are corresponding to which profit and which cost centers. At this point, we've rebalanced our book, not only at the enterprise-wide level, we've kept it balanced at our leading ledger without manipulating the data. I haven't had to go back in and delete out this entry from my leading ledger. I just posted it right where I wanted to the first time. And additionally, I just put in that initial credit for $777, and it posted it to both profit centers because it knew what we were looking to do. So again, in recap, this parallel ledger type capabilities, a lot of groups, they have to do multiple postings to get this to work. You either post to all your ledgers and then delete it out of the ones you don't want to, or you come back in and you put it into a off the books ledger, and then if you're doing that, you really have to come back and say, is all this data really correct? We're trying to use this for making managerial decisions, but have all the numbers been put in correctly? Have we manually entered every single thing the right way we want to? And does it really tick and tie out? And frequently, quite honestly, that's just not something that most organizations are able to do. So the only other thing that is frequently shown at this point is something more in depth with multiple currencies. We're going to skip that due to time constraints, as well as intercompany transaction. We just saw a document splitting transaction. That would be very similar to how an intercompany transaction would be done. Is the only difference really would be changing the company codes as opposed to the cost centers. If you want more detail on the multiple currency transactions or how that reconciles, we can probably provide that after this session with some slide work.